Okay, so this is Ben, or at LOL Worlds, doing another video. This time I'm going to be talking about the lane swap in the game between the Jin Air Green Wings and the GE Tigers. Fairly recent match. Um, so the first thing, I would just like to go through my processes for talking about how lane swaps go down, the kind of advantages of them. I've already written an article about it, but I want to explain some of the in-depth rotations and the ideas that go into how you position your champions on the map for these lane swaps. So it's always crucial to look at the team comps before you go into the game. Obviously, the teams will have a good idea of whether they want to set up their lane swap or not as soon as they go into champion select. But as an analyst, you really have to, just as you go through it, you'll get an idea of what each team is looking to do. So here all the trades have been completed. I'm not too interested in the order the champions were picked right now. I just want to be talking about the compositions and then what they want to be doing in the early game and for a lane swap. So we look at the Jin Air team. You can see here we've got Lulu, who does not so well in a lane swap. Problem with Lulu is that she's quite squishy and she's not great at jungle following. Her damage is low. She's pretty easy to dive early on because she's not a melee, so she'll have low base stats. She obviously has some outplayability between her slow shield and polymorph, but not the ideal champion for a lane swap. We look over at GE's team. Now the problem here for Rumble is that he is a little bit tankier, so he's probably roughly similar to Lulu in getting dive, just because he has so few tools at early levels to deal with getting dove, which kind of makes up for his, which makes up for his tankiness in that equalizes with Lulu. However, he doesn't really want to be in that 1v1, so there is some incentive there for G to want to look for a swap. We go over to the junglers. Now, junglers do matter a little bit in lane swaps. Typically, you'll want to have a more early game jungler because more of the action happens at that stage of the game in a lane swap. And here we notice Jin Air have gone for Pantheon. Now, as I said, this match, it's not immediately recent, but it's fairly recent. We haven't seen much Pantheon recently, but what Pantheon does have is a point-and-click stun at early levels, level 2. I mean, he'll want to jungle with his Q at level 1. But you do have this option of taking the stun at level 2, which can be very effective if you want to go for an early dive or roam gank. And that's really the main point of him. You'll want to snowball that into a successful gank into level 6 before the enemy jungler, which will then allow you for a quick Grand Skyfall gank as soon as you ding 6, which will require some good timing, but that's the general idea behind the Pantheon pick, in my opinion. Rengar is fairly similar, although I would have said a little bit weaker at doing the same thing on this patch to Pantheon. You can get a level 2 CC. It's not as good because it's not point and click. It is a skill shot that can be flashed, which makes it less likely to secure the kill. And again, you'll want to try and get level 6 before the enemy jungler so you can make that crucial level 6 gank. So, fairly dynamic jungle battle here. We look at the mid lane. Now, mid lane tends to be in lane swaps more of a farm matchup. You do need to be careful if you're a champion with no escapes, though. You don't get ganked at early levels when roaming could be happening. So, you definitely have to say that Victor needs to be somewhat afraid here. And then we look at the bot lane, Corki Annie. Okay, so this is a lane that's really going to bully Ezreal Janna. Okay, Ezreal Janna, very low damage at early levels. Annie with that stun, they can really put a lot more damage out than the Janna and Ezreal. So they won't really be looking for the 2v2. So G Tigers are the ones who are somewhat incentivized for a lane swap here, just because they have the worst lane matchups. So let's see how they approach this. Okay, so let's go through the intro here. Alright, so immediately you can see by the way everyone's walking out of the base. They're just going for a fan. No one is, five-manning up into top lane or into bot lane. But what is going to happen here is you'll notice the moment each champion is going to standard positions. Although LeBlanc is taking a somewhat unusual route, actually. Normally LeBlanc would just head up mid and put their ward here. Just for that early vision if they just wanted to create a defensive fan. But well, Jin Air have something else in mind. Okay, so the ping goes out. I think Kuro was able to spot GBM there. These signs actually do interfere with the broadcast a little bit. Okay, so what you see here is that... Has that ward been put down? Don't think so. There's no ward put down yet. But what each player is doing, you can see Lulu is looking to do the same thing. Now what they're doing is something very crucial for these lane swap situations. So Lulu is looking to put her ward in the top bush to see if the bot lane is there. If they're there, Lulu can just walk away. She probably won't even have to blow summoners. And if they aren't there, what this ward will do is if they try and, if they do try and walk into the lane, it will spot them. It will give them a few extra valuable seconds. If Lulu were to put her ward in this bush, that's a bit more conservative, a bit safer, that will spot for a potential freeze attempt by GE. If they're AD and supporter in the top lane, they will look to catch the wave before it hits their own wave, drag it to the top, and they will try and get a freeze on. The junglers are both look like they're going to be starting in the top side. They just show each other. They reveal. So perhaps both have the opportunity to walk back to duke out the vision of the other team, but that's just kind of a 50-50. Let's continue on here. I'm expecting Prey to put his ward down. There it is. Okay, so you can see Prey puts his ward down just in case Jin Air, they do walk into the bot lane. I'm sure Gorilla has already seen Pilot at this point, so they know that everyone's down there. And let's just see how they react, because this is a very standard Korean thing. It's very important for lane swaps to understand what happens here. It's not a very complex one. It's one of the more basics, but okay. So look what's happening. So Ezreal's actually recalling. Okay, Pilot and Che put their ward here and walk back. Now GE think that Jin Air's bot lane are going to then walk back here and do golems, in which case they will be set up to lane in the bot. So G, since they want the swap, they walk back, recall, hoping to get into top lane. But now watch what Jin Air do. So everyone's put down all their trinkets. Well, not everyone, but most trinkets have been put down. Now, look how clever this is. So they reveal in bot lane. Now, G think that Jin Air are going to go and do the Krugs, because that's how you try and get an advantage in the bot lane these days. But what Jin Air do is they actually showed, and they're actually mind gaming GE here. They're sending Corki to top lane. Look. And Che is going to help with the red buff. Now this is a pretty unusual strategy, but Jin Air specifically developed it in this game against the Victor pick, because he has low escapes early levels. And Trace is going to help with the red buff too. And then I think he'll just go into bot lane, because he wants that matchup versus the Rumble. Okay, so now one thing here that's true for GE is that even though they're in the top lane 2v1, they do not have a very strong bully lane. Okay, Ezreal's Q can only hit people who are not behind minions, so he really needs to get far forward. And Janna has very low harass. She can put her shield on and auto attack you, but it's not too threatening. There's very low kill pressure. So Corki is actually going to be relatively safe here. So Trace just happily gets to walk down into the bot lane, get that 1v1 matchup that he wants. So it's a little bit of a disadvantage for Pilot having to lane 1v2, but it's all about this level 1 strategy that Jin Air are going for. So you can see Che walked off to give Chase a level 2. He didn't share any of the experience, and now they're just going to walk from behind Kuro. So the thing about this 2 minutes 30 gank is it's very rare that any trinket wards will still be around at 2 minutes 30. So this gank is relatively free, and they perfectly get into vision at the wrong time for Kuro. The Ignite layers well with the red buff. Chaser gets the kill. Would have been nice if GBM got the auto attack, but kills a kill. Kuro is going to be set far behind. He also used his Ignite, and GBM has both of his summoners up. So this is almost as successful as it could be. In the meantime, Lee finished the Gromp and went to his blue buff, which standard route, but the timings are predictable, and he's not going to be finished that before this gank actually happens. So extremely clever level 1 from Jin, and all they had to sacrifice for this was a little bit of pressure in the top lane, but they also get the advantage in both of their solo lanes. So very clever, and moreover, the LeBlanc having an advantage against the Victor is extreme, and re-ganking that Victor with the Pantheon is a very real threat. So very good play there by Jin. And now Annie's just going to recall. Now she has no summoners, so as I said, they're going to be a bit disadvantaged in this lane, but like I said in the beginning, they had an advantage, so that almost evens out. I'd say Ezreal Jan is still a little bit ahead, and Annie's just going to walk up into top lane. So I think we can pause it there. I might go a little bit further into this lane swap just to see when they swap back. But so far, almost flawless play by Jin. Very clever. They won the mind game there very nicely. And this is, it's pretty, I can emphasize how important it is, this, the mind game of the lane swap and how much that can change the game. So Janna walks into mid lane because they still don't know where Annie is. They were expecting the gank, but Annie now shows in top lane, so Janna's going to walk back. Lee looks for a gank bottom, but Trace has his ward down, so he's safe. It's going to be very hard to gank Lulu with this champion combination, Rengar Rumble. You have your best chance in a long lane like this one, but even then it's going to be hard. Unless Lee's able to get into this bush, I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, Annie gets a deep ward down, so they're getting bullied so little. Oh. And Kuro goes down. GBM flash for it. Lee gets the passive, but he's got to back out. One more stun from Chaser could have been the end of him. So, very good early game play by Jin. Chaser plays this out almost perfectly. His jungle route was just so on point there. Lee is now behind on farm because he tried to react. He tried to be ready for the gank, but it just came at such good timing. And Lee's just hanging around on his pink ward, but rather helplessly. He's not going to make much out of this. Yeah, unfortunately, because he had to blow his flash running away, he can't secure the kill after the distortion. And this top lane should just be fine for Jin. So their early game has gone pretty much perfectly. I think we can just pause it here and say safely that they have won this lane swap. Now, although this game, didn't necessarily go Jin's way in the end, what we can take away from it is that their early game is extremely strong, and this lane swap, their grasp of the lane swap, very good. Showing in the bot lane and having this whole pre-prepared strategy of Annie going to red buff, helping Pantheon with the level 2 gank, just very well played. Very, very well played. And this is the kind of grasp that the Korean teams have over these lane swaps that a lot of teams just don't have. As an analyst, you can really go over it several times and keep learning new things. It's just hard to do that with other regions. Okay, so mid is now so bad for Kuro that Janna has to keep roaming there. Ezreal is going to try and farm safely at his tower, but really, he'd probably need a tier if he was going to be doing this. But Janna's just going to be roaming back and forth. She's going to get underleveled because of this. She's keeping up with Chase so far because he's also underleveled, but you know, any advantage they might have had in this lane is dissipated. And yeah. Alright, that'll do for the first example. Okay, I will go on to the second game shortly, and I'll just release it in a different video. Okay.